Welcome to the Sense Making in a Changing World podcast, where we explore the kind of thinking we need to navigate a positive way forward. I'm your host, Morag, permaculture educator and global ambassador, filmmaker, eco-villager, food forester, mother, practivist, and all-round lover of thinking, communicating, and acting regeneratively. For a long time, it's been clear to me that to shift trajectory to a thriving one planet way of life, we first need to shift our thinking. The way we perceive ourselves in relation to nature, self, and community is the core. So this is true now more than ever, and even the way change is changing. Unprecedented changes are happening all around us at a rapid pace. So how do we make sense of this? To know which way to turn, to know what action to focus on, so our efforts are worthwhile and nourishing and are working towards resilience, regeneration, and reconnection. What better way to make sense than to join together with others in open, generative conversation? In this podcast, I'll share conversations with my friends and colleagues, people who inspire and challenge me in their ways of thinking, connecting, and acting. These wonderful people are thinkers, doers, activists, scholars, writers, leaders, farmers, educators, people whose work informs permaculture and spark the imagination of what a post-COVID, climate-resilient, socially just future could look like. Their ideas and projects help us to make sense in this changing world, to compost and digest the ideas, and to nurture the fertile ground for new ideas, connections, and actions. Together we'll open up conversations in the world of permaculture design, regenerative thinking, community action, earth repair, eco-literacy, and much more. I can't wait to share these conversations with you. Over the last 3 decades of personally making sense of the multiple crises we face, I always return to the practical and positive world of permaculture, with its ethics of earth care, people care, and fair share. I've seen firsthand how adaptable and responsive it can be in all contexts, from urban to rural, from refugee camps to suburbs. It helps people make sense of what's happening around them and to learn accessible design tools to shape their habitat positively and to contribute to cultural and ecological regeneration. This is why I've created the Permaculture Educators program, to help thousands of people to become permaculture teachers everywhere through an interactive online dual certificate of permaculture design and teaching. We sponsor global perma-youth programs, women's self-help groups in the global south, and teens in refugee camps. So anyway, this podcast is sponsored by the Permaculture Education Institute and our Permaculture Educators program. If you'd like to find more about permaculture, I've created a 4-part permaculture video series to explain what permaculture is and also how you can make it your livelihood as well as your way of life. We'd love to invite you to join our wonderfully inspiring, friendly and supportive global learning community. So I welcome you to share each of these conversations, and I'd also like to suggest you create a local conversation circle to explore the ideas shared in each show and discuss together how this makes sense in your local community and environment. I'd like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land on which I meet and speak with you today, the Gubbi Gubbi people, and pay my respects to their elders past, present and emerging. My guest in this episode of Sense Making in a Changing World is a 2021 Kofi Annan Global Changemaker. She's founder of Kitcheny Gardeners initiative in Wakiso near Kampala, Uganda, connecting young people to nature conservation, civic engagement through gardening and through bringing soil alive. She also mentors out-of-school young girls in the slums around her area, and as an environmental scientist, she helps to raise awareness about the key issues also in her community, things like waste and plastic, access to clean water, climate change and loss of biodiversity. She's a peace ambassador and a proud member of this small group of dedicated Kofi Annan Changemakers. I wanted to let you know that at times our connection gets a little bit dodgy, but we persist. So it's my great pleasure to welcome to the show Irene Nagudi. Welcome to the show, Irene. It's so great to have you. For the listeners, Irene is based in Uganda, in Kampala. So we're hoping that this connection is going to work well. And so Irene is a 2021 Climate Ambassador of the Global Youth Climate Network, 2021 Kofi Annan Changemaker, and she runs a non-profit organisation called Kitcheny Gardeners. Welcome to the show, Irene.
Thank you.
Yeah, start with telling us a little bit about what does it mean to be a Kofi Annan Changemaker?
I would say it's a very wonderful opportunity that came my way. I wasn't so positive that I would go through. I'm lucky that among the few, that's among the, I was selected to be a change maker of engaging the young people, letting them know what they can do, how can they raise their voices to prevent to some of the challenges we're facing today. For instance, food insecurity, when you talk about biodiversity loss, and these are some of the things that young people have to step up and work together with the elderly, because we're talking about our environment tomorrow. How will the planet be tomorrow if we, the young people, do not get involved? Yes.
Mm. And so you're based in Kampala. What's happening at the moment there in terms of climate change? What impacts are you seeing?
When we talk about Kampala, I would say Kampala is not that big district. My district is, I'm based in Wakiso district, the neighboring district to Kampala. So you find that most of the times when it rains, we do face floods. You find that, should I call them slums? They do face these challenges of waterlogged for like a week, and afterwards things get back to normal. But since I don't stay in such areas, I'm not all that affected. But I feel like even if some of us who do not stay in such areas, we have to raise our voices. You find that children do not know related to classwork. Someone tells you climate change is this and this. That's a definition they know. But they do not know what climate change can cause, the potential effects of climate change, and what they can do about it. So you feel that in my concern, I was like, there is an information gap. And I think children should be part of this. They have to know what they can do practically to contribute towards climate action, to contribute towards conservation.
So I wonder, you run a program called Kitcheny Gardeners, and that's about teaching children about conservation, civic responsibility through gardening. And so it's, I guess, is this your sort of main way of helping to connect young people to thinking about climate change and climate action? Tell me a little bit about what it is that you do there in that program.
So the program is all about, can I give you maybe a brief history about the program? Way back, my background, I did environmental sciences. I felt like practicing, there is still a knowledge gap. This is something university. When you go to university, you do this course. If you graduate, boom, you have to go into the employment world, which is not bad, but I think we can do more actions that are in university, but even people who are into lower. So for Kitcheny Gardeners, it started with 5 kids. And as I was gardening along with them, trying to get away from, I had just lost my job. So trying to recover from that pain, these kids were there to support me. And that's how I got the idea that, hey, I can do something with these children. We can do something together and we can build it. I didn't have the idea of starting an organization or an initiative by then. We're just doing it as a hobby. Then with time, I saw I could do more. And I'm like, okay, I think I could do more. And I made it a point in myself, yes, I really can do more. However much I had, people didn't believe in what I was doing. People thought that children are very young, they can't, do something about it. But something inside me was telling me, no, you can't do this. And it can make a difference in children's lives and their families. So that's how I got on to Kichini Gardeners. And when we started, I was having the knowledge of environment, conserving the environment. I considered it as a point of adding conservation into gardening, where you could teach the children about bees. So the first time they saw a bee, the 5 kids, they were like, "Hi, the bee is trying to sting me." And we all know pollinators do serve a great role in food production. Besides that, when they saw the earthworms, I remember what started composting. Jesus Christ. They thought it was a snake. Snakes tend to be scary. And I too do fear snakes, but I was telling them, no, these are earthworms. I remember it was a process I was learning as I'm teaching them. So it made it really fun. We were both learning. So they could give you some of the, what if we did this? So you experiment it out. And through that, I thought like, yeah, I think we can do more and teach other children who are missing this interaction with nature, who are missing this information, who can raise their voices. Because imagine a 6-year-old telling you, how about we do this? Then you decide on to doing it. It's just that besides the age difference, you two people can sit together, suggest something, and you make a decision. You try it out. Whether it works or it doesn't work, you're happy, you've experimented something together. So that's how I started the gardening initiative. And I'm like, yeah, it's something that can promote gardening among the kids, connection, like loving one another, discussing with one another. And it promotes love, I would say. Yeah.
Fantastic. So it's not just about the food. It's actually way more than the food. I understand that a lot of young kids, and it's not just where you are, it's around the world. You ask them, would you like to be a farmer when you grow up? And they're most likely going to say no, aren't they? But
Actually,
I wonder how much this program is sort of helping them to start to love gardening.
Actually, you're very right. When it comes to being a farmer, most of them hate it. They feel farming food is a hard job. And one time I met a child. Can you imagine this child didn't know where food comes from? They just know food comes from a supermarket. Food comes from the fridge because mom, the mother to the child, purchases food and puts it in the fridge. So that's what they knew. But now we're trying to change this. Food does not come from the fridge. Food comes from some person who digs it in the soil, harvests it, and brings it to you. And you have to respect the farmer. So you find that they start loving gardening, farming. And some of them are like, okay, when I grow up, I'll have my own garden. However small it might be, but I'll produce my own food. So I believe it's an inspiration. And as they grow old, they will never forget such an experience.
No, they're going to take that with them forever. It's a fantastic program. So do you take this to schools and to other communities as well as your own? How is the program set up, Irene?
Oh, the program at first, I've been raising funds from my own income. So I could reach out to friends. Hey, I'm doing a gardening program with children. Could you connect me to some children, maybe in your home? So you find that these friends are connecting you to their homes. So you garden with these children. But being a change maker under the Kofi Annan Foundation, I got the opportunity. And I'm expanding this gardening initiative to at least 200 children in my community, which I didn't have the support before. And I believe in this next 9 months to 1 year, it will be a great experience.
And so how much of what you do is influenced by having learnt something about permaculture as well?
Actually, I remember I had the permaculture lessons that was in September 2020. So we had been released from a lockdown, and when the opportunity came, I traveled to Eastern Uganda to practice this permaculture. The few lessons I got there, I was like, and interact. These are things we never used to know. So when I came back, I just had to experiment this through my backyard. For instance, catching and storing energy, like water that was running. So I tried to see that this water, instead of just flowing along the road, how about I divert it into my backyard? And I experimented it. It really worked. Using flowers into my garden to control pests. And I saw, yay, this can work. So it's something that I also want to build on, including in the few permaculture techniques I've learned and try to incubate it into the gardening process, that everything is nature. And this is something that is cheaper for any home or for any child to do instead of purchasing pesticides, fertilizers. So this is something simple that the children can opt to, just as with adapted composting. So you find that composting has become really something that is great, and we usually add it to the garden beds, and we do get something out of it. And I believe extending this knowledge, it will benefit the children a lot.
And what happened before people compost? Where do people normally put their food scraps? Where does it go if it's not composted? Is it just waste somewhere?
Actually, it's always waste. Waste that is heading to the landfill. And according to the little knowledge I have, we all know that when it comes to landfills, taking in all the decomposing stuff, it contributes to greenhouse gases. So if it's a challenge and people in my community still do not know that we can compost this, we can add it to soils, though some do have small backyards, but they do not know that this can work for them, it's still a challenge. And it's something that I'm going to be addressing in this project under the Kofi Annan Changemakers program.
Fantastic. So so the people who live in and around you have not been living in rural areas they've been more city dwellers for a long time. I'm just wondering whether anyone has brought with them some kind of rural skills and whether composting is part of a traditional way of thinking, or is it a new thing, do you think?
According to what I'm seeing, it's a new thing to them. And most of them that have lived in the city for over 20 years, 30 years. So you find that they left the rural setting way back when they traveled from their villages, come to the city. And I myself have also grown up in the city. So you find that these are good techniques. And at times I ask my mom, you mean you never practiced something with your grandma or with your parents? They're like, yeah, they used to do certain things. But when you come to the city, life changes.
Yeah.
So you find that it's not really a habit as of now. But I believe if we connect the children to it, probably they will teach their guardians and their parents one day.
Yeah, that's fantastic. I know you also I read that you also work mentoring adolescent girls about growing the girl child. Are you still doing that work, or could you tell me a bit about perhaps if there's any connection between gardening and your work with girls?
Right. For the girl child, that's an empowerment program, Girls Empowering Girls. Like the big girls, we do empower the adolescent girls. This is a program under UNICEF and KCCA, Kampala Capital City Authority. So I love children, and when the opportunity came, I was like, yes, I can mentor them, and it has been really wonderful. Though I'm thinking of extending my gardening techniques to these children. These are children in an urban setting, but in a slum. So I believe if we could do more of gardening, it will contribute to their food security in the homes where they do come from. because through the mentoring program, I've tried to study a few of the problems they face. So you keep on interacting. And I believe if I extend this program of gardening to them, it will do them some good and it can save on the money that is being spent on food within their families, especially when it comes to the vegetables.
Yeah, that would be fantastic, wouldn't it? And, also looking at how you could do tiny gardens, sack gardens, gardens that can fit in those slum areas in and around Kampala, because I've been through the middle of those areas and there's not much space, is there?
No. Actually, what we do have mainly, those are verandas. The space we do have, it's us who are on the outskirts of the city. That's the little space we do have. But unfortunately, also this space is not being put to use. And I feel like something has to be done about it.
Yeah. So how are you spreading the word about this? Because I can imagine, beautiful food producing balconies full of flowers and vegetables would be a really appealing thing for people to see. And particularly, I guess, in lockdown, because you're in lockdown right now, aren't you?
Yes, we are.
Mm. And maybe gardening might be something that could help people during lockdown as well.
Exactly. Actually, it's something, what I did about it, I started out with social media platforms. The little work I was doing, I could post it, at least for people to know that, hey, there's someone somewhere doing something about this. And I also had to set up a demonstration, like a backyard demo, my own backyard, since I'm located along the road so that people can see what I'm practicing. And through this, at least a few people have approached. They do purchase seedlings, for instance, for mint, vegetable seedlings. And that money, I use it to extend to children. Hey, can we try out something like this in different places? And it has been working out. So the demo and my social media platforms, at least they have helped on to pass the message to other people. Yes.
Yeah, great. So I wonder, Irene, what is it that inspired you to think about climate action and climate change? I mean, a lot of people, like you're saying, aren't necessarily aware of it. They might hear about it, but it hasn't really stuck with them. What inspired you?
Actually, I'd say first the course I took at university. Then, when I got fired from my job, I was already practicing the advocacy campaigns with fellow young people. But along the way, I remember we had founded an organization, but it stood out that our voices were not being heard. You suggest something, and it's left on the table. Your colleagues think, hey, this won't work out. The government might be like this and this. And still the passion I had for young people, children, because basically I do love children. And you find that I had to combine these things. I'm like, okay, what if I do something different? Something that won't be silenced, because me being silenced, it hurts a lot. Different young people have ideas that are really productive. But if someone puts a stop on you, hey, don't raise that, I feel like you're stepping on someone's right. And these people have to say out what they think. It might solve the problem. So basically, it was through the youth organizations I was working with. For instance, we worked for the MAP campaign, Marine Arctic Peace Sanctuary. It gave us the exposure. Yes, also young people can do it in Africa. Young people can, their voices can be heard. So that's how my inspiration kept on being driven. And also thinking that it's not okay to silence me. I felt like, no, my voice has to be heard. And this should be through practical actions, not heading for the streets to claim that climate action, climate change is affecting us. whereby you find that you're talking about climate change, but millions of Ugandans do not understand climate change, which is a fact. How about we do simple steps that can address climate change, that can address working along with nature, that's conservation, that can address that we can work together as young people, as the elderly, we can work as one. So these are some of the things that really drove me up to where I am today.
Yeah, that's really powerful. And you're right. The thing about blending conservation and gardening and climate activism all together is really a very strong platform to stand on to make positive change in the world. And I wonder how many other young people, so not necessarily the children, but maybe people in your age group, your peers, that have you got to work with? Have you got a good team of people there, or not even a team, just a group of colleagues who you can talk about this and be advocates together?
Yes, but to live, should I say, live my dream. Challenge. You believe in something and you choose to move by it. People always follow you. People always pick interest, and that's what happened. I started alone the journey, and as I was doing this, talking about it, most of the fellow young people of my peers are like, "Hey, Irene, what are you working on? I feel your work can be great." And of that, I have 4 people who have joined me. They help Irene. How about you try this opportunity? Maybe I can help you here. So it was the decision I made that, they might not believe in it, but I feel I can move this journey. So when I showed the confidence that, yes, things are not easy, but I can walk, people decided to join me. And so far, I have 4 people on my team, I being the 5th person.
Fantastic. I wonder how has it changed the work that you do or the voice that you've had? Because you were saying being silent hurts and, you don't want to be silent. Now that you're a Kofi Annan Changemaker, have you been able to get more attention from the media, maybe television, newspapers, magazines, has it given you a platform to speak wider and louder?
I haven't yet got the opportunity, but I believe I'm going to get the opportunity soon. The few people I've managed to talk to, these are people who are into conservation, people who are into advocating for the young people. So they invite you to talk about what you're doing, talk about how you're engaging fellow young people. Those are so far the opportunities I've got. And I believe they can be a stepping stone to present me to other platforms out there. Yes.
Yeah, great. I think it's so important to be able to do that. And tell me more about the Global Youth Climate Network. And what does it mean to be a climate ambassador? Is that the same as the Kofi Annan program, or is that a whole different program altogether?
That's a different program. And here I was trying to understand more about climate change, climate financing, because knowing climate change, I would say it's a bit of a difficult topic, and trying to interpret it to people who are young, people who know nothing about climate change, it's a bit difficult. So when I saw the application, hey, you can apply. So I applied, and I was among the chosen. So during this, I was aiming at understanding more about climate change. What is climate change? How are young people getting involved in climate change? The different ambassadors across the world, what are they doing? Because I believe learning should be a daily habit, learning from different people. These are challenges we're facing. They might not be the same, but in one way or the other, they are interlinked. And climate change is a global challenge. Tomorrow it might be in the Philippines, then the other day in Uganda, like across. So I went there purposely to understand more about climate change.
What worries you the most about climate change?
What worries me the most, if you're to look at the young population. Our population is really, I would say, huge. And when I look at the people who have grown up, people who are in their 50s, 70s, some of them even tell you, for us, we're soon dying. But the question is, what remains behind? The young people who are going to stay behind, what can they do about it? Because if they start now, that means that we can have a control over this problem. But if they do not start now, it's really a challenge. And where will they stay tomorrow? If we're to count 50 years ahead, how will they manage to handle some of the things we used to see? Let me say, the big forests. The forests have vanished. There are no more. What can we do about it? So it worries me a lot that you might find that tomorrow our children to come, the grandchildren, they might not see the physical features we've seen today. They might not see the animals we've admired to see today. They might not see the forests we used to talk about way back in our primary levels. So it's really, it would be selfish. That's what I can say.
Mm. And, there's a really strong correlation between the flooding that's happening and the loss of the forest, because the forest, as you know, hold the water up in the up in the hills and create those water cycles. And without that, when the rain falls, it just floods and takes the soil with it. So I wonder, are there big tree planting programs that are happening and that young people are getting involved in doing? Is that something that young people are thinking, oh, great, I can be an activist and I'm going to go out and help replant some of these forests?
Yeah. Yes, and I'm really grateful that I've got friends who are doing this, because you can step in once a time and you plant together. But I have friends who are greatly concentrating on planting trees. Trees in which the forests whereby they have been diminished because of times government, times private companies and all that. And these young people are stepping up. So at times I connect with them. Can we plant trees? As a way of showing that I'm not only concentrating on the garden's food, but hey, trees help us to get this food. It's nature that provides. So I can say that it's really grateful that young people in my country, Uganda, they are really focusing on planting trees, many of them.
Mm. And I know that there's probably a lot of people who it's not on their radar to think about climate change or what's going on. What do you think is the best way to ripple this further and faster? Because we know that we've got a short amount of time. They're sort of talking about by 2030 we need to make these changes. So how do you think you can spread the kind of work that you do to further? I ask this question to everyone because I have this sense of urgency that we're all doing this great work, but there must be a way that we can amplify all this good work. Do you have any thoughts or ideas on that?
Actually, the thoughts I have is to engage everyone. I'll give an example. Yes, we're talking about climate change, but farmers, most of them do not know climate change, though they do see the changes, but they do not understand these things. If we talk about the Paris Agreement, if we talk about climate action, they do not know these things. When we talk about the Sustainable Development Goals, they do not understand them. We haven't gone a mile to interpret this information to them so that they can be part. And when we look at poverty levels, you find that these global challenges are still continuing because poverty drives everything. Maybe it's why it's named SDG 1, I don't know, but you find that it drives a number of global challenges. It's a number one cause in my thinking. So I'm thinking we can involve everyone. And this requires us to go even to the need to know their responsibility to contribute to this. Because it won't make sense if the youth are fighting so hard to change this we think that the urgency is needed, yet the people who make decisions are not interested. It shows that we're working, but hey, we're not going to achieve anything because people who are making decisions, they are not altered in one way or the other. So it's a bit of a challenge, I would say. Though we have to think further, and every person, whatever you're doing, I believe you should keep on doing it. If it's recycling of plastics, continue doing it. You're contributing one way or the other to this problem. For instance, I'm into gardens. I'm into educating the young to also know these challenges we're facing. I have to continue doing it. The same way you're into permaculture, you have to continue doing it. So I feel like everyone has a role to play, and we just need to keep on doing what we're doing, influence other people to join us. At times I believe in numbers.
Yeah, you're so right. We just need to keep on keep on doing it continuously to make it more and more visible. I wonder, what do you have support from other community organizations or other governments or NGOs who are supporting this work in Wakiso?
Actually, I have so far 2 people, and I feel it's a great step ahead. One is Extremely Together Uganda chapter. It's a peace building chapter under the Kofi Annan Foundation. And it's through them that I learned that in your profession, in your area of work, you can do something towards peace building. If you're to look at climate change, it's among the things that are distorting our peace. You're looking at when prolonged droughts, you're like, hey, how are we going to get the food? For instance, we were first with locusts, and people were like, hey, are we going to eat? So you find that peace is distorted in one way or the other. So they do support us with knowledge and opportunities that we can hop on for in order to expand our project. And still they do support Kitcheny Gardeners in a way that, okay, Irene, there is an opportunity here. Can you jump on for it? They recommend you, write recommendation letters. So that's one way of supporting. Then I have another friend, is the ED of Peace December. I don't know if you've come across it via Instagram. It's Peace December, promoting permaculture in communities. And
can you say the name again? What's it called?
Peace December.
Peace December.
Yes, Peace December Uganda.
No, I haven't heard of it.
It's led by Ali Tebandeke. He's into permaculture. And he's one gentleman who introduced me to permaculture, like getting the basics about it. So he also supports me in case of opportunities, in case of knowing something about permaculture, gardening with children, what can I add in, so with the information. And so far, they have been resourceful people to me, and I believe through them, I can be connected to further areas also, considering the work I'm doing, the visible, practical work on ground. It can promote me further.
Yeah, absolutely. Because what I'm seeing in so many places is that permaculture can really help to address climate change. It can help to build peace in communities, and it can help to address poverty. Like you're saying, it's providing food, and there's income possibilities from the surplus. So it's a fantastic way to address many of the issues that you've been talking about. I'd love to get the connection. Maybe you can send me an email, or a website or something to that group, and we can add that to the show notes so people can also find out. But I wanted to just touch base on, you mentioned the SDGs before, the Sustainable Development Goals. I wonder how do you see them relevant to what you're doing in your community? Do you find them helpful?
Yeah, I do find them helpful because it's through the SDGs that I do get to know what is really lacking in our countries. Some of the indicators they have laid down. Then when we look at the different targets they have made, whereby they talk about this is still lagging, I find that it's an opportunity. I talk about issues that at least have a baseline on. And it also gives me the opportunity to know that children can also get to understand something about the SDGs, not restricting them just to people who are into them, like studying specifically about them. So I feel like SDGs are really great. They do give us the information, the stand where we do stand as a country, as a region. So we get to know what is the exact problem we're still facing and we have to solve. And I can relate that to nutrition. I was looking into food security, SDG2, and the nutrition status in the country. It showed that as a country, we've gone a mile to fight anemia among the young women who are giving birth. Is it also undernutrition? But it showed that obesity is trying to increase. So it gives you where to start from. If it's obesity on the rise among school-going children, what kind of activities can I extend to these children? So I believe it's a baseline where we can relate our work to and know what we can solve, where we can face the problem, how we can handle this problem, and all that. Yes.
Yeah. So what's coming next for you, Irene? What are some of the programs that you're thinking of in terms of taking it further? And what's your biggest wish to if you could do anything, what would you do to make the changes you think you need to see in the world? Big question, I know.
Okay.
Sorry.
Oh God. Okay, my dream is to have a farm, but this farm is a way of bringing together young people from different backgrounds. They could be from the region, like Africa. They could be from outside Africa, but they're coming here for basically studying about the gardening. What projects can they start at home? Whereby you yes, you're a student, but there is something you can do at home and contribute to your family as you're contributing towards nature. And still on this farm, we get to connect, we learn, and eventually lead. So you find that these young people have opportunities to also participate in global challenges, for instance, storytelling. And this child is giving, or this young person is writing a story about conservation depending on the experiences they have had. So my dream is more of we're having a place as Irene, that's where we're situated, but we're bringing in different young people from different backgrounds. How can we exchange ideas? And this is all practical work so that we change the world into a better place.
Wow, fantastic. Where would you have that farm, do you think? Do you have some land already, or would you need to where could you find land?
Actually, I haven't got the land. That's why I said it's still my dream, but I'm making all means possible in order to move this dream. And I want it to be deep into a village, probably within Wakiso district or the nearby district, whereby different people can easily convert, can easily reach out. And we also get to know communities outside there and how we can work along with them.
Yeah, I can imagine too. If the possibilities of having school groups visit and all different sorts of people coming out and learning. That's fantastic. And I think you're absolutely right. Having more really good examples of how things can work well is possibly one of the most powerful things that we can do, and giving people opportunities to get their hands dirty for want of a better word, to get their hands in and have a go and to feel the difference, to know the difference, to see the difference, to taste the difference. I wonder too whether there's something about, different sorts of cooking or anything else as well that, because people love food, don't they? So there's some way of changing the way that we think about food. Particularly in thinking about permaculture diversity, what are the main foods that people eat on a daily basis in your area? And is there a need to diversify that?
Okay. Well, that's a serious. Though I love food, I would admit. And one thing I've realized, people, what they more into, posho, rice, matoke, those are bananas. So these are the foods that people eat on a daily basis. And when it comes to sauce, definitely beans. And as I was making my research, talking to different people, you find that people are not into vegetables a lot. And I believe this is a great supplement to every meal. So you find that if someone purchases rice, it's into the house, beans are stocked. When it comes to posho is stocked, people feel like it's done. But remember, we need to supplement these foods. It's not like something we have to depend on a daily basis, because these foods are the same foods you find in schools. Now imagine a child from school, you've been eating beans, posho, rice. You come back home, it's the same process. It's a bit challenging, but I feel like we can improve on it. We can diversify our meals by supplementing something like vegetables, and things could be wonderful, I guess.
Yeah, because all of those extra nutrients are what helps people to grow and to learn and to become strong and healthier and less affected by disease and all of those things. Malnutrition is there's, it's not just the lack of food, it's the lack of nutrients, isn't it, as well?
And it's silent. People don't know that they are facing malnourishment in one or the other. It's something that's really hidden. By the time we realize it, it's at times too late.
Yeah, that's right. Oh gosh, well, there's so many different things. I'm so glad to have had this chance to talk with you. I really wish you all the best in your year as a Kofi Annan Changemaker and with all of the programs with the children. I really hope we were able to stay in touch and talk more about our programs, because we do similar things but just in different parts of the world.
Yes. And I believe it would be a great opportunity. Like, learning never stops. Connecting with your group, connecting with the people you work with. Just like one gentleman who reached out, I got my contact from you. So I believe that would be a great opportunity, connecting with more people, and we'll see how to make our world a better place.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much for taking the time, Irene. I wish you all the best and enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you so much.
So that's all for today. Thanks so much for joining me. If you like a copy of my top 10 books to read, click the link below, pop in your email, and I'll send it straight to you. You can also watch this interview over on my YouTube channel. I'll put the link below as well. And don't forget to subscribe, leave a comment, and if you've enjoyed it, please consider giving me a star rating. Believe it or not, the more people do this, the more podcast bots will discover this little podcast. So thanks again, and I'll see you again next week.